The APNU AFC coalition campaigned on a good life for all. In May 2015, when the party attained office, a fresh approach to the good life in a green economy was introduced. However, the government inherited a number of challenges and immediately set about addressing them. The introduction of a number of policies and programs were aimed at the sustainable exploitation of the country's resources to the benefit of every Guyanese. In this segment of InDepth, we look at some of these policies and programs, particularly those that have positively impacted key sectors that contribute to Guyana's economic development.
Here's an important message from the Ministry of Finance and the Guyana Revenue Authority.
If you've never filed or paid your taxes, or have deliberately not declared your true income, and now you're worried that you'll be audited by the Guyana Revenue Authority, I have good news for you.
The Ministry of Finance has announced a tax amnesty effective January 1 to September 30, 2018.
So you can now pay all your outstanding income, property, corporate, withholding, and capital gains taxes and get right with the GRA. Visit their office or call them at 227-6060, extension 1201 or 1204 today.
Invest in your country. Pay your taxes. Paying the right amount of tax helps provide a good credit rating. A good credit rating is a requirement for getting financing.
You can use your good credit rating to get loans to expand your business, buy a house or car, or pay for your university tuition.
Take advantage of the tax amnesty and pay no interest or penalties from now to June 30.
Invest in yourself. Pay your taxes. A message from the Ministry of Finance and the Guyana Revenue Authority.
In its infancy as a new government, the APNU AFC coalition was met with a cash-strapped sugar company. In 2015, the government provided some $4 billion to the Guyana Sugar Corporation to keep it afloat. Sustaining the viability of the sugar industry has been a struggle over the years, President David Granger noted.
This government cannot sustain the sugar industry in its current state. It has had to make difficult choices in order to ensure the industry's viability. Its earliest measures included convening a commission of inquiry into the state of the industry in October 2015, publishing a state paper on the future of the industry in May 2017, and creating a special purpose unit to manage the reform of the industry in June 2017.
The white paper on sugar proposed the consolidation of the sugar industry.
It is not being closed. We will explore all options to ensure a viable industry, mindful of its impact on the nation's rural economy and its residents.
The government committed $2 billion in 2018 to pay downsized workers. At the end of January, workers received 50% of their severance, with the remaining to be paid out by the end of this year.
And it has earmarked $100 million to provide small loans for entrepreneurial activities which could open opportunities for employment after leaving the sugar industry. The Guyana Sugar Corporation is not being dismantled. It is working actively to ameliorate the impact of retrenchment on workers' livelihoods. It has established an alternative livelihood program aimed at providing support by enabling ex-employees to access available opportunities to function in other fields.
Historically, sugar has been a leading contributor to Guyana's gross domestic product. However, its performance has been subpar since the mid-2000s. The government's consolidation of cultivation to the Albion, Blairmont and Iflot estates and factories is intended to make the sugar industry efficient and competitive. Under this new model, Gaisuco is expected to produce 147,000 tons of cane annually, while securing the jobs of over 11,000 workers. Agriculture is one of the critical sectors of the country's GDP. Minister of Finance Winston Jordan recently said there are efforts to wean these sectors from, quote, grandfather markets, unquote, to make them more sustainable in the long run.
The coalition government understands that economic stability is the cornerstone to achieve and sustain the good life it has promised. Minister of Finance Winston Jordan, in his first budget presentation in 2015, committed the administration to a 5-year macroeconomic plan by creating conditions to foster a positive growth trajectory while improving expenditure management and revenue administration, low inflation, stable exchange rate, and sustainable debt.
We have maintained a manageable debt-to-gross domestic product ratio, well within the internationally accepted limit for countries at our level of development. At 45.2% of GDP, Guyana has one of the lowest debt ratios in the Caribbean, a fact recognized by the Caribbean Development Bank, which has commended the government for fiscal consolidation and prudent debt management.
In just 3 years, the government also increased net foreign assets at US $611 million in May of 2015 to projected US $613 million at the end of 2017, while inflation has been kept in check. The government has also committed to ensuring that it is transparent in its operations, particularly public-private partnerships. Minister Jordan recently presented the government's public-private partnership policy framework, or PIR3s, as it is called, to the National Assembly.
With that, we are setting out the framework under which we will do P3s, which was not available before. It's not that P3s haven't been done before, but our experience with P3s, as you well know, haven't been so great. When you look at Marriott Hotel and you look at the Berbice Bridge, you will appreciate that we couldn't go down the road with that kind of model.
It can be significant when they are designed well and implemented in a balanced regulatory framework. However, economic growth has been less than projected over the 3 years. Minister Jordan explains that this is because the economy has not changed much over 50 years.
It depends on either one or two products, which depend on what prices are. And so one day you're up when gold is up, another day you're down when bauxite is down, or sugar is down, or rice is down. And the second thing is that our critical sectors have always depended on some grandfather, so to speak, and that grandfather being a protectionist market. In the case of sugar, as you know, it was the ACP market. In the case of rice, what many of you are probably too young to know is that rice has always had some kind of grandfathered market.
The government has undertaken to develop an economy that is more broad-based and diversified.
In 2015, a significant oil discovery was made offshore. Guyana's oil potential soon became a reality as 6 other discoveries was found between 2015 and 2018. Now that oil is expected in 2020, the government intends to use the revenues generated from this new industry to diversify the country's economy.
Minister of Business Dominic Gaskin earlier this year said that the monies generated from the oil and gas industry is no chicken feed.
The government of Guyana will receive, in the first year of oil production, 2% of the gross proceeds, as well as 50% of profit oil. Based on production of 100,000 barrels per day, and at today's gold price of approximately $60 per barrel, this amounts to in excess of $300 million in government revenues in the first year. By 2022, when the second phase of development starts to produce oil, government revenues will increase to approximately $800 million per year.
Guyana's oil and gas wealth is so vast that it can help the country to transform other industries that need a boost or are struggling to get established. Minister Gaskin.
Agriculture, I believe, is the key. It's an area we've always been an agricultural economy, and there's no reason why that should stop. In fact, there's every reason why we should do it as best as we can. We have the land, we have fertile land, we have fresh water, we have a workforce that understands how to grow things and how to plant and reap, and we understand agriculture. People in Guyana, in all regions, agriculture is a major source of income, and oil and gas can deliver that. And there's a lot of doom and gloom about what Guyana isn't getting, but the truth is what Guyana is getting is what we should be focused on. Government revenues will increase considerably once oil starts to flow. And it's not that we're sitting back and waiting for that to happen. There are other things that are happening, but the oil and gas development is so big and it will make such an impact that we cannot ignore that impact and we cannot not prepare ourselves for it.
The Business Ministry has promoted value-added production in the agro-processing and manufacturing sectors.
We also have to add value to what we produce and look to access export markets. Because once large-scale agricultural products and large-scale processing operations get started here in Guyana, we ourselves, as much as I'm urging you to consume what we produce locally, we would not be able to consume all that they produce. That's fine for the local producers. We can certainly consume most of what they produce. But if we want to attract serious large-scale producers who can bring new technologies and new methodologies, new farming methods and smart farming methods to Guyana, then we are not going to be able to consume what they produce, and we have to rely on foreign markets.
Preparations are also being made to ensure that conducting business is much easier. The electronic single window is one such initiative.
This project is transformative. This is what businesses in Guyana want, and this is what Guyana needs to facilitate trade and other business transactions in a way that is efficient and cost-effective and clean. And by clean, I mean free from corrupt practices. This initiative is a key element in the Ministry of Business's strategic plan. We understand the impact that the electronic single window system will have on businesses operating in Guyana. We also understand the consequences of not keeping up with the rest of the world when it comes to improving the way that we do business. The global marketplace is competitive, and we will not be able to compete if we cannot effectively facilitate trade and other business transactions.
Information Communication Technology, ICT, is critical as Guyana enters a new phase of economic development. Minister of Business Dominic Gaskin notes that Guyana has the potential to become a hub for innovation and technology.
None of this is impossible. However, none of this is likely to happen unless we create the space for this industry to grow and to become relevant to our country's development. Now, every day I see people grappling with antiquated and inefficient solutions to various problems that the rest of the world has already found smart ways to resolve. And this tells me that there is a lot of room for improvement in Guyana, a lot of scope for the increased use of ICT in Guyana.
The Ministry of Public Telecommunications has also highlighted the numerous investment possibilities for ICT. Minister Catherine Hughes is a proponent for ICT's advancement.
We believe that with the use of technology, you improve your deliverables, you are able to improve performance levels, you are able to communicate and connect people. So it's huge opportunities for information, for also educating people, and of course, entrepreneurial activities.
Using ICT to promote development and transparency, the Ministry of Public Telecommunications has been establishing ICT hubs across the country. To date, more than 100 ICT hubs have been established.
That when you have, for example, agencies like CXC that are mandating that young people present their SBAs and their projects online, then you recognize the importance of connecting people in our country. The digital divide is even more important when you consider that because of our geographical land space, we have places in the hinterland, poor communities, as I've mentioned, that don't have access to the internet. And so the ICT hub was a way to get around that. That we could look at a safe space in a community and say, look, we want people in this community to be able to access the internet.
Minister Hughes noted how businesses, particularly small businesses, can maximize their reach using ICT hubs.
If you are an entrepreneur, a person establishing a business, a woman in Sarama who is, I love to talk about making hammocks, she can now create a Facebook page and sell her hammocks any part of the world. So it really is an opportunity that I think provides citizens of Guyana to start to transform in whatever area.
The government is also bridging the ICT gap between the coastland and the hinterland. The National Data Management Authority is overseeing a US $17 million ICT access and e-services for hinterland, poor and remote communities project catered for under the Guyana Red Investment Fund. Director of NDMA, Floyd Levi.
This project aims to address some of those critical issues, providing access, providing the means of accessing government services, and for those residents who do not have the capacity to go online and navigate and download and operate online, we'll also train them to be able to use those government services online. So our approach is one I would like to say is inclusive. It doesn't exclude any of our citizens, whether by geographic location or whether by your ability to pay. We're trying to bring all of our residents to a point where they can actually consume government services online in the comfort of their own homes.
The Ministry of Public Telecommunications is also advocating for girls in ICT, Minister Hughes said.
We want to renew our commitment towards changing attitudes and transforming the lives of women and girls through ICT. This is something we take very seriously. The girls in ICT clubs in our high schools, and especially at Bygaville and North Rheinveld, where we have pilot projects, the girls in our STEM and STEAM clubs, the girls at the University of Guyana, the teachers at the schools and the training colleges, and the training programs that exist not just today, but throughout the year. All these are opportunities that are available in Guyana today. So I urge each of you to get involved and to update your skills. There are also a few Guyanese Can Code clubs.
Another crisis that the government had to address when it came into office was the blacklist against the country for its failure to enact anti-money laundering and combating of terrorist financing. Minister of Legal Affairs Basil Williams successfully led the country out of the blacklist.
Guyana was blacklisted by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force in 2013 after the previous administration failed to enact the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism Amendment Bill.
We were in a position to exit both CFATF and FATF. But because CFATF had issued 3 public statements against the last government, they were there, and the last government didn't comply still after 3 public statements. And CFATF ordered the members to take countermeasures against the last regime. And then they sent them, refer them to FATF. So it meant that even though we have satisfied all the core and key recommendations under the follow-up process with CFATF, we couldn't exit CFATF.
Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Basil Williams immediately set about working to reverse that decision. The AML-CFT Act was passed and sensitization of reporting bodies was conducted to ensure they are in compliance. In October 2016, Guyana was cleared by the FATF International Cooperative Review Group.
The collaboration between the APNU plus AFC government and the Guyanese people and institutions resulted in Guyana's successful exit from the FATF ICRG process. The high-level political commitment of President Brigadier David Arthur Granger, the drive and leadership given by the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Mr. Basil Williams, and his compliance team, and the contribution of the FIU under the helm of the Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordan, were matched by the responsiveness of the Guyanese financial institutions, the private sector,
and law enforcement institutions. These latter institutions profoundly impressed the FATF ICRG's on-site team members with their knowledge of the FATF standards to combat money laundering and terrorist financing.
Complying with these international regulatory standards is important for the continued economic development of the country, Minister Williams noted.
It was because we were more or less blacklisted by CFATF, and the membership was ordered to take countermeasures against Guyana. So people were not dealing with us as they normally would, and it made things difficult, transactions difficult also. And so the ordinary person was affected because a lot of Guyanese got remittances from their families abroad. And so a lot of things were slow, but difficult, but made more difficult as a result of that status that we had. In addition to that, you have to do customer due diligence when entering into any relationships. You have to know who is the natural owner of a company, for example, the ultimate owner. All of these requirements are there so that if we had not come out of the FATF process, you notice we have been losing correspondent banks, all these things. The risks would have been very heavy. And once we lost correspondent banking, that, that's the end of remittances and easy transfer of monies between countries and the like. So it would be much better for Guyanese businesses and Guyanese businessmen to do transactions now around the world, because Ghana has been cleared as a member of the international community in which business could be done.
Minister Williams is now the chairman of the CFATF. He continues to work assiduously to ensure that Guyana clears the fourth round of mutual evaluations in the FATF process.
The test is whether we would have shown, and I quote, sufficient progress on effectiveness, end of quote. For example, having more convictions for offenses of money laundering, terrorist financing, and purloining of state assets.
To realize this, the government has been sensitizing judges and lawyers on anti-money laundering convictions. Recently, Guyana successfully hosted a judges and prosecutors conference in collaboration with CFATF and the Commonwealth Secretariat. Legal luminaries from CFATF member states shared experiences on countering terrorist financing and money laundering.
Building Guyana's presence in the international arena is one of the cornerstones of this coalition administration. Over the last 3 years, the government has strengthened bilateral relations with a number of countries, inked MOUs, and secured funding from others.
The government has also been strengthening its South-South relations. Last year, President David Granger attended the Mercosur meeting, which was held in Brazil. The president also paid an official state visit to the Brazilian president following the summit. A number of agreements were met during bilateral talks with Brazil. Minister of Foreign Affairs Carl Greenwich explained.
The agreement on infrastructure is an agreement that, first of all, recognizes that the two countries are interested in enhancing the infrastructure between them for purposes of economic integration, basically economic and social integration. And more specifically, when Minister Patterson and I were here on the last occasion, July, we did have discussions with our counterparts regarding how to take this process forward. And the discussion led to the decision that the two countries would provide financial resources for the engineering design of the road. Let them to Linden.
The realization of the Latham to Linden Road is expected to boost trade within the country and between Guyana and Brazil. Discussions between the two countries also focused on Guyana's promising oil and gas industry, Minister Greenwich noted.
Brazil, of course, being an immediate neighbor and with a capacity in oil, a capacity, Petrobras is one of the majors in terms of deep sea drilling, and we have no doubt they can do the job. I could add that Petrobras has in fact participated in the conference. They were looking at the results, and it is now for the government of Brazil to give them clearance to move forward with whatever they see as commercially worthwhile. And we will lend them whatever assistance we can. There are, at least at this point in time, 2 other firms which have an interest, and we look forward to that.
Guyana was also in attendance at the Summit of the Americas, where it recommitted to fighting corruption both at home and internationally.
The government of Guyana has taken concrete steps in the fight against corruption in an effort to build a more prosperous, safe, sustainable, and democratic society.
This year, the president represented the country at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, where a number of discussions were held between the president and the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat.
Update on Guyana's territorial controversy, together with issues ranging from Brexit to the challenges that the UK faces, environmental issues, and so forth. Cooperation that is ongoing, that is in terms of the security initiative and other areas. So that was a wide-ranging discussion, and I think quite fruitful. We undertook to try and continue cooperation on all fronts.
Aside from strengthening its international image, Guyana has successfully hosted several international conferences, from the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting to the Hague Conference, to the recent OAS Tourism Conference. These have generated revenues among the country's service and tourism industry. Aside from these, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is preparing to defend Guyana's sovereignty at the International Court of Justice, following a decision by the United Nations Secretary General. For more than 50 years, Guyana has contended that Venezuela's claims that the 1899 arbitrary award is null and void is a legal issue. More importantly, President David Granger said that a final resolution will remove the impasse on the country's economic development.
This controversy has bedeviled our relations and has actually stymied our development in 4 of our regions: Barima Waini, the Patara Siparuni, to some extent the Rupununi, and also Kuyuni Mazruni. Those 4 regions have had their development obstructed because of Venezuelan objections. We are very confident that the award of the tribunal in 1899 will be vindicated.
This brings us to the end of another program of InfoHub In-Depth. Thanks for watching. Do join us again.